Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Much better than last week.
Matt, I wish I could say I was doing better than last week, but Matt, you know I'll just say it, Matt. You know my life motto. You know my life motto. No sad anime, Matt. But Matt, what happens when real life is just sad?
Jaren, that's 3D just coming full force at you.
Matt, I don't want to start the episode with, okay, maybe not necessarily a bummer, but more so a celebration of a content creator that both you and I enjoy. So Matt, we have admitted time and time again on the Mistake Zone that we are fans of VTubers. And, I think we both self-admitted that we do more or less more so fancy those coming out of Hololive Productions, whether it be, the JP branch, EN, ID, Hollow Stars. But I know since 2020, when you got me into this rabbit hole, Matt, that there are a bunch of non-Hololive talent that we both mutually, follow and talk about and share clips and streams. And I guess, unfortunately, I think one of, if not my favorite non-Hololive talent in Amano Pikamee from the Bombs project. She had her graduation, her retirement, previously this week on March 31st, which really gives her a 2-year career date. And I think during my introduction to VTubers, especially from your end, Matt, where you introduced me to pretty much Hololive. I think both Hachima and Rushia were two of the talents that you first shared to me. But I think in terms of non-Hololive talent, I believe it was Pikamee was one of the first talents that you also sent me a few clips of. And
really, I thought you sent me clips of Pikamee first.
Did I send you clips of Pikamee?
I feel like you did.
Well, I think so. Essentially, I guess we both discovered Pikamee around the same time, just because I associate my falling into the rabbit hole around, the start of the pandemic, which is March 2020, kind of coinciding with the release of Animal Crossing. And that was also around the time that Pikamee did debut. And I think one of I guess I'll ask you this after too, Matt, but I think when I started watching VTubers, alongside Kasuna AI and the Hololive, it was mostly me relying on clips, just because at this time, there wasn't necessarily a big EN VTuber boom. Hololive EN didn't debut until a few months later. I think this was that weird period where the middle ground that I found was, through Pikamee, who, a portion of her streams were in English, plus the Hololive ID girls who also spoke English here and there at the time too. And I really do consider this time to where this is where I really defined, I guess, my taste in VTubers, just because you had, especially Pikamee, trying to appeal to the English-speaking audience as well as the Japanese audience. And that's why I think she's always had this special place in my heart, where she was probably my favorite non-Hololive talent. And, she announced her graduation earlier this month. I believe we both watched her goodbye stream. And honestly, Matt, the moment that ended and I guess her whole channel got hit with the privatization, that shocked and kind of stung. But I think that's enough of me rambling, Matt. But now that we kind of established that we both don't know who introduced who to Pikamee, what was your or what are some of your thoughts when it does come to Pikamee and her VTubing career?
I really liked Pikamee. My initial introduction to Pikamee was I believe it was either the Mario clip or the Let's Kill the Hoe clip.
Yes, with Shika, I
Mm-hmm,
believe.
mm-hmm. And I don't know, Pikamee was just like a very unique talent to me. I Jared, I never really paid too much attention to the rest of the VOMS members. I really
Right.
only paid attention to Pikamee and then only a little bit of like Tomoshika. And I don't know, it's wild to see someone who I think is probably the most popular member of that company,
Yes.
or popular, I guess, like VTuber of that company, to be leaving. And I actually wonder like what's going to be happening more so with that company than what Pikamee is going to be doing, if she's going to be doing anything in the future. Because I feel like that's
Right.
a very big blow to that company.
Yeah, like not trying to take away from, Tomo
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and the other two members of VOMS, but when I do think of VOMS, I do think Pikamee instantly. I really liked her design, just her whole vibe, and just how she would kind of bounce off like different people she would collab with. But yeah, Matt, I think when thinking back to some of my favorite moments of Pikamee, it is, the kill the hoe moment.
Mm-hmm.
You had the family friendly is dead during that Mario
Yep.
stream, the classic her spilling the iced tea. But Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite Pikamee moment was watching her. I think she had two or three streams dedicated to the Winnie the Pooh home run derby game.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just following that entire stream along with how many other thousands of us that was watching and just witnessing her slowly, dive into madness trying to play, this infamous Flash game. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for all the memories from this one VTuber and, bummed to see her go, but wish the actress behind Pikamee the very best moving forward with whatever she does. But damn,
Mm-hmm.
that sad to see her go just because she would, when she was more regularly streaming, she would be always a talent that I try to have in the background at the very least. But Matt,
Mm-hmm.
before we move on, just once again thanking Pikamee, and was there any other kind of standout moments or clips that come to your mind?
I don't know, Jaren. For me, Pikamee, other than the ones that I mentioned, all of the stuff that I watched for her was always Jaren, I used Pikamee a lot as a reaction VTuber
Right.
or content creator, because I don't know, I got pushed a lot of Pikamee reacting to like meme compilations that I had just finished like watching, and now I would think, oh yeah, let's go see what Pikamee thinks about this.
Matt, there was a hot second where, let's just say, I couldn't re-enter the house for reasons.
Uh-huh.
And I remember just one summer morning, it was me, our dog sitting in our backyard, and I was watching Pikamee react to like the tipsy bartender and that whole series. And that,
Hmm.
her kettle laugh, really infectious,
Yeah.
really great talent. So thanking her for all the memories and wishing her the best.
Hmm.
And that,
Hmm.
I guess, family friendly really is dead now. I'm so sad, Matt.
Sure, she has to come back, right? That's how this works, right?
Here's hoping, Matt.
Oh man,
Here's hoping.
6 months, Jaren, 6 months.
So, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
let's move on to some new beginnings just because it's now April.
Mm-hmm.
That means a new season of anime. And
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
as I said before, flight coming up. I have that Crunchyroll account ready to download some episodes
Mm-hmm.
for offline viewing,
Mm-hmm.
making a mental note that I'll need to watch every episode that I downloaded within a few days before they expire and delete themselves.
Oh, they
So,
do
Matt,
that? I never knew the control
okay,
out did that.
Matt,
Mm-hmm.
so did I tell you how when I went to Mexico a few weeks ago, I downloaded a bunch of Bocchi the Rock, I think Buddy Daddies or whatever that anime was.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few snafu episodes and I thought, okay, I'm going to watch a bunch on the trip there. I'm going to watch a bunch on the bus to the resort. And then I'm going to, run it back, watch it on the bus ride back to the airport and on the flight back to, the mistake zone.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt got on the bus, ready to go to the airport, end of my week at the resort, opened the Crunchyroll app for the first time in like a week. Matt, all the videos were expired and I couldn't watch it.
Damn.
And I would have to re-log in to access it.
Damn.
And that really made me sad, Matt. So now with that knowledge in mind, Matt, how's spring season 2023 looking? And do you have any recommendations for me to watch on the flight I have coming up?
I mean, Jaren, if you really want my list of recommendations, you can check out our YouTube channel where I've just dropped a spring 2023 anime you need to watch video. But
oh, okay, Matt. Now you're telling me that I'll need to go to youtube.com and search The Mistake Zone, Saturday Morning Arcade anime you need to watch spring season 2023, and all those other SEO goodness in that search bar. Okay, I got you, Matt.
But
I got you.
I can give you a taste here on the Mistake Zone, Jaren.
A appetizer, if you will, and if you want the main course, remember, all you need to go is YouTube, hit that search bar, The Mistake Zone, spring season 2023 anime you need to watch, Matt. What do I need to preview to entice me to go watch that video?
Honestly, Jaren, one of the things that I think the really big thing that's coming back this season is Demon Slayer, but
yes,
you're going to be in Japan anyway, so you're probably going to get full force of this. But Demon Slayer is coming back, so it's going to be probably all up in your face for a while.
Man, I'm actually really excited. Well, excited might not be the right word, but really curious just to see how bombarded I'll be on subways, just because I think I've mentioned this on the Mistake Zone a few times, where when I went back in 2019, that was kind of at the height of a My Hero season, and that My Hero everywhere I could see. And I am looking forward to seeing how much Demon Slayer just around me will be. So yeah, definitely season 3 is something that I am looking forward to as well. Matt, I didn't get to watch the new Demon Slayer movie. That was something that we wanted to go check out in theaters. I believe it acts as a bridge to, from season 2 to season 3.
Oh, okay.
But I'm curious if season 3 will do the same thing where, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first few episodes of season 2 traditional was essentially like an anime version of the Mugen Train movie, correct?
That's what. Yeah, like the first 12 episodes was just a conversion.
Matt, what do you feel about like that in general? Just taking an anime film and kind of repurposing it for an anime season proper. Is that something you have any thoughts of, or is it just I'll reconsume this?
I didn't reconsume it after I watched the movie.
Okay.
But I kind of understand why you would do that, because it is an actual significant story portion of the series, right?
Yes.
And it being a movie, because I feel like a lot of the times anime movies are usually just for lack of a better word here, just like OVA type things that aren't really integrated.
They're fillers for the most part,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, and they're usually not really integrated into the actual story for the show. So in this case for Demon Slayer, I fully understand why they decided to kind of chop and screw the movie into half of the second season.
Do you, as a anime viewer, do you feel like you got cheated out of a full season, or were you okay with kind of how the second season was kind of portrayed overall?
I mean, I don't feel like I got cheated out of one, because it was basically just one whole core of a 2-core like series or season.
Yep.
And I feel like even if they didn't do the Mugen Train movie to anime conversion, we only would have gotten like the new Entertainment District stuff anyway within that time. So I didn't really feel cheated out of anything in particular.
Yeah. And I think while we're still on the topic of Demon Slayer, I kind of did want to mention this at one point because, one of the reasons why we didn't get to watch the new Demon Slayer movie was because I wanted to rewatch, seasons 1 and 2 and kind of get myself properly caught up before watching the movie, and of course, season 3 that comes out this month as well. And in rewatching season 1, it kind of occurred to me, one, just because the first time I watched season 1 fully was, again, when I went to Japan back in 2019. So I watched the first 20 episodes on a plane on my iPad.
Oh, that seems like a
and then
bad way to experience that.
And then, no, Matt, it gets worse. It gets worse. You know how I only had 20, my iPad had only enough space to hold like those 20 episodes. Matt, the last 6 episodes of season 1, I watched on my phone while the tsunami was going on outside. So to be able to re-experience season 1 on, an actual television with an actual, sound system, Demon Slayer season 1 is so good. Like, I know back when we did that OVA episode, I gushed about how amazing episode 19 was, specifically. And that episode still holds up. And just to be able to see it on an actual big screen with like the proper sound when Tanjiro finally does that, quote unquote killing blow on the spider kid. Matt, you can just feel the impact. I legit jumped out of my seat. Just to see how hyped it is. But Matt, rewatching season 1 kind of made me realize that there's a lot of quote unquote filler in terms of even in some of the same episodes, they'll just re-show the same scenes over and over again to kind of emphasize a point. And I noticed a lot too, where a good, a couple of minutes of each episode would basically replay the last few minutes of the previous episode. So I think that's something I definitely noticed, the rewatching the anime in itself, where a lot of the footage is reused to kind of pad it out for better or for worse. I know it's all about storytelling purposes and, just recontextualizing element or story beats and things. But yeah, that definitely stood out to me. But Matt, still great to rewatch it and actually experience it in a better entertainment setting. So I don't know, Matt. I feel like I'm gushing about 2019 a lot. Matt, you know me. I'll always gush about 2019.
Yeah, that's a good year. That's a good anime year.
And I think it's poetic that I'm going to be rewatching anime on an iPad on a plane again. But sorry, Matt. What realization did you come to?
So, Jared, while we're on that 2019 topic, do you know there was a Angel Flew Down to Me movie came out? I think it's coming out. I think it came out actually a week ago. Okay.
So Matt, I don't know what you're going to do in the 3 weeks where I'm gone, but if you want to do a deep dive episode, if you can wait a few weeks, let me know, because oh man, Matt, 2019 was so that. Sorry, I know we're talking about the new 2019 season anime, but Matt, I saw something that made me feel really bad this weekend. In addition to, the god Pikamee retiring, Matt, I saw so it was a thread on Reddit that said, wow, this meme did not age well. And Matt looked at the meme, and it was one of those things comparing Komi-san and Hattori Bocchi. Not Bocchi the Rock, but 2019's Hattori Bocchi. And the meme went something like, has social anxiety, all the character traits that Komi and Bocchi share. And at the end of the meme, it said, number of anime for Komi 0, number of anime for Bocchi 1. And then it was that, therefore Bocchi shows her social anxiety dominance over Komi. And that, the fact that Komi has 2 seasons of anime to Bocchi's 1 made me feel real bad, real sad. That's sorry, I had to bring that up in the mistake zone while I currently live in the past in 2019. But Matt, are there any other spring season 2023 anime to help, bring me to modern times. Also entice me to go onto YouTube to search your list of must see anime of the spring season.
Jaren, I guess while we're talking about Komi, there is an anime that just started this season that kind of has the same feel.
Okay.
It isn't so much about like a communication disorder. It's more so about a kid being a just a 12-year-old guy being a 12-year-old guy and being all up in his like, oh yo, look at me, he's Chuninbyo self, and kind
Matt,
of like
what was Matt, what was that 2019 anime that we Outburst Dreamer Boys?
yeah.
Does it give Outburst Dreamer Boys energy, or is
No. It's not really that kind of energy. It's more so. It's actually a lot more of a semi like rom com
okay,
kind of show. It's called The Dangers in My Heart,
right.
where it's basically kind of like a chunin kid falling for the I guess like the popular girl in the class, like that kind of trope.
Right.
But the thing that I really like about this story and the way that it develops is that it isn't immediately a hey, this kid likes this girl kind of story. It's more so you can tell that he likes her, but he doesn't understand that he does. So it's a story about him kind of learning how to be a normal person.
Oh, that sounds like a nice coming of age story as well. I think I think this is definitely something within my wheelhouse that I should check out. What's it called again, Matt?
It's called The Dangers in My Heart.
Okay. That actually sounds really cool. And
yeah.
Oh man, that so it's essentially a kid pretty much hitting puberty, let's be honest. But I feel like okay, I feel like that can be fun. But that rule of threes, can you give me one more? And then for the rest, I'll definitely check out the YouTube video.
Oh, Jared, I'm debating between two now. Okay. Because there's one that's super popular and one that I think is going to be talked about eventually.
Okay.
But I'm going to go with the less popular one, I think, which is called Insomniacs After School.
Okay.
Jaren, this is another slice of life anime. And it's basically just about two kids who have insomnia and they end up meeting each other and just hanging out like at night.
Okay.
And eventually it shifts from a hanging out at night and talking about insomnia kind of story to a guy finding his passion in photography and astronomy kind of story.
Oh man, this sounds really good. Another coming of age story type. Matt, if you know me, you know I love me some coming of age stories as well. Of the slice of life variety, of course. So, Matt, you're dropping some heaters right now.
There's some good slice of lives this season.
But Matt, as you said before, for the rest of your recommendations in spring season 2023, check out the Mistake Zone Saturday Morning Arcade YouTube and your latest video. And Matt, it's sounding like a good season to pull me out of that 2019 funk. I'll say funk. Endearing funk. But Matt, before we move on, there is something I want to run by you real quick. Just because as I was mentally preparing for today's episode and I was thinking about, we'll probably talk about some anime at some point, and Matt, as indicated by what I said previously in this segment, Matt, I was kind of wondering, in general, Matt, why do you think Bocchi the Rock is more popular than Hattori Bocchi? And before you answer, do you think it has something to do with kind of the age setting of Bocchi the Rock being of, high school girls, cute girls doing cute things, compared to Hattori Bocchi's middle school girls doing cute things? And in general, from, your anime viewing, I guess, history / career, do you think that the high school setting really contributes to an anime's, reception, popularity compared to that of a middle school setting? Or is that just something you haven't really noticed during your years of watching?
Honestly, Jaren, throughout my years of watching, I've never really noticed the real difference between a high school and a middle school setting when I'm watching anime. But I also feel like that might be because we're Canadian.
Right,
Like
right, right,
we, or at least like I didn't go to a middle school. I was
right.
like grade 1 to 8, and then I went to high school.
Yep.
So I didn't have that middle school experience. So for me, when I'm watching anime, I that is not really something I register too much.
Right.
I mostly just see the kind of first year, second year, third year sort of like distinction when I'm watching anime.
Yeah. No, I
But
definitely
mhm.
get that, but I think again, Matt, I know this is the Hattori Bochi simp trying to complain online with manically complaining about how his anime of choice isn't popular, but
Uh-huh.
I was sort of thinking along the lines of I think to me in a high school setting, you're able to kind of get away with particular, I guess, humor elements that do lean into towards more, quote unquote, adult humor. I think you
Mhm.
can get away with a lot more goof opportunities within that high school setting. And I think, you know, this goes back to kind of our discussion about Persona a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
where everyone is so fixated on, or that franchise seems to be so fixated on, the high school experience, just because I feel like there is that, not only element of, familiarity, but also that your ability to kind of branch out in terms of subject matters that you can tackle both, more adult or more childish in comparison to something like Hattori Bochi. To me anyway, as much as I love that series a lot, I do feel like there is this sense of, you know, innocence in a way where you can't
Mhm.
necessarily be you can't explore the same amount of goofs. And maybe that was what I was kind of thinking of. While I do adore Hidori Bochi, me finally getting off around to watching Bochi the Rock and just seeing the amount of different characters that are present there that also kind of deal with more adult, quote unquote, adult themes
Mhm.
and more adult characters where those types of characters and their storytelling possibilities interacting with a high school student, I think um, you can tell like more meaningful stories in compared to like something like middle school setting. I think that's where it's a bit more dicey to really flirt with that kind of content. But that's kind of
Yeah.
just what I was kind of thinking about. But essentially, that's another long-winded way of me saying, Matt,
Uh-huh.
I just need a season two, man. I just need a season two to finish Bochi's
Uh-huh.
story.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Matt, to review before all our friends go check out the YouTube video, what were some of your 2023 spring season recommendations one more time?
The ones that I went through over here were, I guess, like Demon Slayer, The Dangers in My Heart, and Insomniacs After School. Like those are all ones that I really think that you should check out.
All right, Matt. And I will definitely check out the rest of the spring season 2023 anime that you can't miss on our YouTube page.
Uh-huh.
And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm all out of being a shill for ourselves and
Nice.
Hattori Bochi.
I don't think you're ever gonna be out of being a show with Tori Bochi.
Probably
Uh,
won't, Matt. Probably
uh,
won't. So, Matt,
mm-hmm.
speaking about anime and new anime, upcoming anime, you sent me a link this week from Pitchfork,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't one of the reviews for an album that I was really into, but a news article from them that notes that a new Scott Pilgrim anime series is coming to Netflix, and it's voiced by the original film cast.
Yeah.
Pitchfork reports that the likes of Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Weinstein, Karen Culkin, Chris Evans, and Aubrey Plaza will reunite with director Edgar Wright and series creator Brian Lee O'Malley. The article that Pitchfork posted ends with Science Seru is the animation team behind the reboot, and Anamana Gucci, who composed music for the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World video game, are working on the score with Joseph Trapanese. And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like us growing up, we're millennials, leaning towards not necessarily the old millennial side, but kind of, on the older side of millennials.
Hmm.
And I feel like while we were in high school, that period of late high school, early post secondary school, I feel like Scott Pilgrim was such a big series to kind of our generation, and it had almost like this cult following on it. Am I misremembering, or was that kind of your feeling around that time as well?
I feel like, yeah, it did have a very cult following around it, but to be fair, it was you exposing it to me, so maybe it's just very colored by you talking about it a lot back then.
All
But
right,
yeah, like
fair enough.
because I'm pretty sure I didn't know about it before you told me
Yeah.
about it.
And I think this is me going off of just how many, times I would see people, just out and about reading one of the various volumes, just seeing it not only in, hobby stores, but,
Hmm.
main, um, just basically a lot of the big branded or big box bookstores as well, department stores, and just overall internet fandom. I really thought that Scott Pilgrim had this big, you know, kind of following at the time, just because it kind of spoke to a lot of the aesthetic and the general vibes of, our kind of that time frame, and especially of similar ages to those characters.
Hmm.
And I think it's always had a special place in my heart, specifically because I was really impressed by the live action Scott Pilgrim movie. I believe that was something we all
Hmm.
saw together at the theaters. A lot of classic lines that even till this day, I think, Matt, I don't think 6 months go by without one of us saying, bread makes you fat, just because I feel like it was such a charming movie at the time. And I know as we kind of grow older and stories, are constantly battling the test of time. And I know some people have might not see the Scott Pilgrim story in itself as, highly as they did back in the day, but some part of Scott Pilgrim always lives on
Hmm.
to, people who really consumed it at the time. I'm really curious to see how much like a project like this will hold up, especially considering how this might not be exactly a one-to-one telling, but just further explore the Scott Pilgrim universe in itself. And the reason I say that is because at the time, the Scott Pilgrim versus the World video game by Ubisoft, that was such a solid beat 'em up game. It had a lot
Hmm.
of callbacks to the River City Ransom games as well. I remember that was one of the Xbox Live Arcade games that I was able to get all the achievements in, prior to the DLC coming out. But again, it was re-released, I think, a few years ago. Got it day one just to kind of relive that nostalgia for the game that I had. And frankly, these characters, that universe, and it didn't necessarily hold up as much as I would have liked it to. So that's why even though I'm excited for this anime project, especially because Science Seru is, the team behind it. You might
Hmm.
know them for Devilman Crybaby, and my personal 2020 anime of the year in Keep Your Hands Off Izuken. Just seeing their involvement really made me excited to see how this will play out. But again, I think I'm really curious just to see how, because to me, Scott Pilgrim is such a story of its time, just because we were essentially living that kind of same
Yeah,
period,
yeah.
like that story in our own way. So as a older boomer now, I'm wondering how I relate to that story now that it's what, 10 coming on 15 years later or so. But yeah, Matt, Scott Pilgrim anime coming out, original cast coming back to voice.
Hmm.
How do you feel about the news about it?
I'm kind of excited for the anime itself because I really
Hmm.
do want to see what it's going to be about.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my, actually, pretty much only my only experience with the Scott Pilgrim story is basically just through the movie and the games. And
Right.
in the Pitchfork article, they do mention that it's a series based on the graphic novels. I mean, Jared, I guess
Hmm.
maybe you can expand on this? 'Cause I believe you read them, right?
Yeah, way back in the day.
Like,
Yeah.
do you know if there was like a notable difference or like a notable amount of missing story between the novels and the movie?
I think in terms of like, of course, there was like just elements of the story missing from what I remember,
Hmm
just
hmm
because there were, I forget how many volumes ended up Scott Pilgrim ended up being, but the movie in itself went by relatively quick. I think a lot of character stuff was, you kind of have to cut that out from a production
Yeah,
standpoint just
yeah.
because you're trying to fit and from what I remember, the movie wasn't even that long, to be honest. So I think when you have a runtime of, assuming this is going to be like 12 episodes, okay, it's Netflix, so anywhere between 8 to 12.
hmm
I feel like even then your runtime is still at least double that of the movie. So I am hoping that when you are exploring the Scott Pilgrim universe, that you do get to explore a lot of the characters more, and you don't kind of have them, just necessarily be one-offs that you meet relatively quick, just because, you know, there was some previous relationships there that can be explored that you didn't necessarily get to explore in the movie.
hmm
So just additional background on Ramona's previous relationships could be cool, especially if they do dedicate a single episode to one of her exes and just
hmm
being able to shine light on those relationships. But yeah, um, I think when you linked me this story, Matt, one of the things that really surprised me was I didn't realize how stacked the Scott Pilgrim
Yeah.
cast
The
was.
cast is crazy.
Just looking, I guess to be fair, a lot of the cast was, they weren't necessarily the stars that they were today, but they were
hmm
on the up
hmm
and up. And like seeing like Chris Evans just
Yeah.
returning to this is kind of wild to me. Aubrey Plaza, Matt, Aubrey
Uh-huh.
Plaza.
Uh-huh.
Um, Big fans in our friend group of hers, and even though she is taking a lot more serious roles as of late, just to see her come back to Scott Pilgrim makes me happy. And Michael Cera, he likes Mario Kart, Matt, and me.
uh-huh.
I like to support people who like the things I like.
Uh-huh.
So,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, not sure. Don't think a date was given for the Scott Pilgrim anime, but again, I'm really curious to see what as like visual style Science Saru will have for this. But yeah, really curious to see how it turns out. And as I said, Matt, if 30-year-old me can still relate to these characters, just
Uh-huh.
because Matt,
hmm
I'm a bitter old man who cried that his one of his favorite VTubers retired. Can I
uh-huh.
see myself in Scott Pilgrim still? I don't know, Matt. I don't know.
Oh man.
But yeah, any closing thoughts on this, Matt?
Yeah, Jen, I think just the cast for
Hmm.
not movie, anime. Jen, honestly, it makes me feel a little iffy, to be honest.
Really? Yeah.
Because like
Okay.
I wonder how much, and I mean maybe this is just a really old man way to look at it, but how much money was put into getting this cast back versus it being spent towards, I don't know, just animation or production value.
Right. That's a good point. Just because, Matt, I know we weren't doing the mistake zone at the time, but Keep Your Hands
hmm
Off Izuken was such a production like to me where I absolutely loved that anime. I think that was one of the because Matt, us, that was during the time of the pandemic and
hmm
just waiting for the next episode and being excited about what the next episode could entail or what the next two episodes could entail in these three girls' quest to create the anime to their standards and just the different um just some of the visuals and subject matter that they tackled. That if we still recorded the mistake zone at that time, I would have been gushing about Izukin every week.
Uh-huh.
So I'm when you say that you're concerned about how much money is being put towards the cast as opposed to the production, I think
hmm
now that fear is in my heart just because I loved Izukin so much. uh Devil Man Crybaby, I know we've haven't really discussed it directly, but I know you watched a few episodes, I believe. I
Hmm.
watched a few as well, and I thought it was really well done. And I'm hoping that, Science Zero is able to do what they can do, or what I've been able to see them do, and that they're, not only compensated accordingly, but enough budget is put towards that direction, just because when it comes from the team that did Izakin, like my standards are a bit higher. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm really
Hmm.
curious to see, now that you mentioned it, I am curious to see how the production is overall, because that is pretty much the main reason why I'm coming to this when it does eventually come out.
Hmm.
So Matt,
Hmm.
speaking about things that really impacted us growing up, Matt, you linked me to another article this week, this time coming from IGN, reporting that E3 2023 has been canceled.
Yep.
IGN reported that almost a year after announcing its return, the Entertainment Software Association announced today to its members that this year's Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3, has been canceled. IGN can confirm. Following IGN's report, the ESA issued the following public statement from Kyle Marsden Kish, Global VP of Gaming from Repop. He says that this was a difficult decision because of all the effort we and our partners put towards making this event happen, but we had to do what's right for the industry and what's right for E3. We appreciate and understand that interested companies wouldn't have playable demos ready, and that resourcing challenges made being at E3 this summer an obstacle they couldn't overcome. For those who did commit to E3 2023, we're sorry we can't put on the showcase you deserve and that you've come to expect from Repop's event experiences. But Matt, I
Hmm.
feel like this was a long time, not necessarily a long time coming, but not necessarily a surprise either, just because
Yeah.
E3 did skip out, I believe, 2022. It was supposed to come back this year, organized by Reedpop, who has done a lot of the cons, like a lot of the PAXs as well. But over the past few weeks, we saw a lot of companies, especially the big three from Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, confirming that they wouldn't be at E3 this year. And I feel
Hmm.
like when the big three essentially announced we're not going to be at E3, that's kind of the death blow. Like,
Yeah.
Matt, when you saw those announcements a few weeks ago, and when you saw a lot more, third party publishers sort of not necessarily commit, not, really giving anything a definite answer, does does this really come to a surprise for you? And I guess the bigger question is, do you see the E3 name kind of as tarnished now, where do you think it can even come back at this point?
I think that without them pivoting hard on what the, I guess, like event is about, I don't think E3 comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Like even back when the big companies were pulling out of E3, my honest first thought was, "Oh, I didn't know E3 was back."
Right.
And I guess like seeing this confirmation that E3 is canceled now is like no surprise to me. I Jaren, I have like a lot of fond memories towards
Yep.
just E3 in general.
Yes.
Just like it being, the week of time that you have to, pay attention to the gaming world. And Jaren, for me in particular, the week of time when I have a whole bunch of bombcasts to listen
Yep.
to, and those were like some of the best memories I have towards E3. Just listening to, I guess, insider coverage of what is going on at E3,
Yeah.
and I don't know, just it makes a lot of sense now, especially post pandemic when I guess there's a lot more experience with regards to kind of just hosting your own event.
Right.
That it makes a lot of sense that E3 is gone, but I don't know, to see the name kind of just kind of disappear like this, because they haven't said that they're doing anything else with it, right?
No, not from what I've seen.
Yeah, like just seeing it kind of like disappear like this is I don't know, kind of sad, and E3 didn't deserve to go out like this, Jaren.
Matt,
But
are you sure that E3 didn't deserve to
I mean,
go out like this? Because Matt,
the ideal I have
okay,
of E3 Prime didn't deserve to go out like this. Is
fair
more so
enough.
what I mean.
Fair enough. Just because I have 2 points that I want to bring up,
Uh
and
huh.
I think I'll kind of reminisce alongside with you, just because, as you said, growing up, I feel like I've had this wild, quote unquote relationship with the idea of what E3 is, just because it's
Hmm.
been this big trade show, this big expo that has gone on for, over 2 decades now. And I remember just growing up, even in elementary school, just the idea of essentially, gaming Christmas, where
Uh
this
huh.
is the time where I need to pay attention to all my favorite gaming outlets, all my favorite gaming publications, just because they're telling me about the future. They're telling me about what
Hmm.
I need to be excited about for the next year, what I need to look forward to in Christmas. And I remember, Matt, just because I was a cringe kid growing up, where every time it was E3 season, I would make my MSN Messenger name, like counting down to like the E3 week, making my avatar picture on like AIM or MSN saying, "Oh, it's E3 time," because that's how hyped I was. That was like this
Hmm.
event to
Hmm.
look forward every year, just to see what was new. And then kind of growing up again, Matt, you know, following more enthusiast press, following more gaming personalities like Giant Bomb and GameSpot and their E3 coverage that was all of a sudden a lot more personable, and you're seeing a lot more faces that you become familiar with telling you, as you said, kind of these inside stories, what the floor was like, a kind of intimacy that I never necessarily had as a kid growing up, just because all I was seeing was just preview coverage as
Hmm.
opposed to on the floor experiences. And for a while now, it was just this excitement of, okay, the industry's coming together. Can't wait to feast on content. And as we've kind of seen that the past few years, we've kind of seen that really dry up, and the E3 identity itself, kind of get lost in, okay, of this, how much of this pageantry is actually really needed, just because being at E3 itself is kind of an expensive cost. And as we've seen, one of the big things for E3 for the casual viewer like ourselves are the press shows. And as Nintendo established their direct and revealed that, oh, we can just do this whenever
Hmm.
it fits our marketing, schedule, our release windows. And the last few years, E3's identity has been so weird, especially when you have, Jeff Keighley from who started off as, that correspondent on the Electric Playground for us Canadian boys, to hosting, the TGAs and now the Summer Games Fest, where you still have that week or that period or that date to look forward to for all these reveals. And now all of a sudden, how needed is E3 now, especially in the wake of everyone doing directs, everyone being able to do their own kind of online press showings? That, I don't know, Matt, as you said, I feel like E3 can only come back when a proper identity is found again, just because being that central hub for video game news isn't their thing anymore, nor
Hmm.
is it really viable right now economically. And Matt, to my second
Hmm.
point, I ask, does it deserve the way it goes out like this? Matt, we both watched Space Jam: A New Legacy, did we not?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember LeBron James's quote unquote son wanting to go to E3 coding camp so he can become a game developer? And Matt,
Uh-huh.
when I saw the E3 name being repurposed for the new Space Jam movie, I immediately thought E3 is dead to me, man.
Oh
The
no.
one event that I looked forward to as a child so much, as a youth, as a young
Uh-huh.
adult,
Uh-huh.
as a adult, is now
Uh-huh.
dead and being paraded around in a LeBron James
Damn.
film featuring Warner
Damn.
Brothers characters.
I can't believe LeBron James killed E3.
Uh, oh man, Matt. But yeah, like that's
Uh-huh.
where we are right now. Like, what is E3 other like even when I was watching Space Jam, Matt, like who is that for? Like, why use that E3 name other than to kind of appeal? I guess Space Jam is like a such a fan service movie. You have to give fan
Mm-hmm.
service to the quote unquote gamers. Like that was
Uh-huh.
wild to me, Matt. But I don't know, Matt. Um, read again, read pop behind, the like the typical Comic Cons, the PAXs. Um, from your perspective, Matt, like the idea of E3 kind of resembling a PAX, resembling like a Comic Con, is that even appealing to like a casual viewer like yourself, or do you already get your fill from, the Summer Games Fest, like the publisher directs, where even like something like that was never going to like kind of appeal to you?
Yeah, like I don't think it would have appealed to me.
Hmm.
Nintendo, Sony, like Microsoft, all of them are able to do their own thing now. So without any like super big draw, like I don't think there's really anything for me at E3. Even if it was more of a fan thing, like you said, kind of like Comic Con, I don't really know what like appeal would be there because it's Comic Con itself. Like in terms of if you're not actually going there,
Yeah.
is more so just like you said, an announcement type thing. And I don't know, it's hard to I think do that now because at least Comic Con it's fostered a like a community. I don't
Yep.
know if like that's like the best way to put it, but like I don't know if you can come in now and do that sort of thing because I feel like that might be what more so what like the PAX environment is at least from like my point of view.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm the same way where I don't know, Matt. It's E E3 meant so much to kind of us growing up, and just to see
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
as you said, go out like this, kind of with like a press release and people seeing the writing of the wall on the wall like the
Yeah.
last few weeks. It's man, what a way to go out, Matt. But
Uh-huh.
at least they were able to get some sort of a rub from LeBron James. And hopefully his quote unquote son enjoyed E3 coding camp.
Uh-huh.
Now, did you enjoy that Space Jam movie?
I didn't hate it.
That that
Uh-huh.
was one of the most egregious examples of wow, they literally showed this entire movie in its trailer.
Jared, Jared, I it was a very good movie for seeing who's gonna show up in this
Yeah.
movie. That's basically what that whole Space Jam movie was for me.
Oh, Matt, sorry. Before we move on from Space Jam,
Uh-huh.
did you see the Multiverses news this week?
Could you refresh my memory on what it was?
So essentially, the Multiverses team and WB announced that this week that Multiverses, the open beta is now closed and will no longer you can no longer play it until it officially launches sometime in 2024. Mind you, this is a
Uh-huh.
game that you can buy into and buy a over $100 Canadian Ultimate Starter Pack.
Uh-huh.
And I think to see them say that, oh, one, didn't know this game was an open beta.
Yeah.
Two,
Same.
I feel like it's so wild that they're literally taking the game away from essentially people who paid to play this game and then taking away access for, let's just say it's
Basically a year.
yeah, basically a year, and then for them just to be able to have a second launch to hopefully more, just public reaction and public appeal. Because
Mm-hmm.
Matt, we dedicated like a good portion of one of our episodes of the relaunched Mistake Zone to
Uh-huh.
multiverses and kind of our excitement of seeing a new Smash game come out. But at the same time, I feel like when it did quote unquote enter open beta, I think just the game itself like really started to fall flat amongst its community. And I feel like the only time I would see news about, multiverses wasn't, oh, they announced this character or this character. It was the typical, hey, Multiversus has dropped X amount of players compared to launch.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, this is speaking to so many free to play games essentially ending their service. You know, we had like Rumbleverse is one that come to mind, Knockout City,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, just to see, I guess, Matt, from your, like, what do you think about one, Multiverse is essentially closing for, exiting open beta, closing for a year, and then hopefully relaunching? And then two, like, how do you currently see this free to play space with all these, titles essentially closing?
Jaren, actually, something you just said didn't even occur to me
Hmm.
until you said it, which is when you said hopefully relaunching, which is wild now that I think about it. Because
See, Matt, like, I feel like when you sell $100 packs, you have to relaunch, but I feel like there is there has to be some sort of chance that this doesn't, like, maybe
uh-huh.
even like a really really small chance. Again, nothing allegedly, nothing confirmed, blah blah blah. But like there has to be like an underlying thought of, will this actually come out in
Mm-hmm.
within the year? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, like that just seems wild to me because I don't think that there's been any other game that's done this sort of thing
Hmm.
where because like there are games that are like, hey, we're gonna have open beta for this amount of time and then we're gonna close until real launch, like basically
Yeah.
what Diablo did. But it's a known thing that you're not gonna have access to it. Like this is almost like something in early access taking away access for a
Yeah.
while, which feels grimy to me, Jaren, and I don't like it. Even if it is for a game that like I personally don't have too much of a vested interest in.
Yeah. Just because it potentially sets like a really bad precedent, just because,
Mm-hmm.
again, like when this was announced that, oh, Multiverses is quote unquote shutting down for the time being, will relaunch in 2024. Like, as you said, this is the equivalent of an early access game, just being taken off early access. Hey, you can't access it until we decide to officially launch. And it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
wild to think that this is all happening. And hopefully they do relaunch, just because, again, people paid to play this game. And I don't know, it just speaks to the current market right now, where it's so hard for especially a service game to really establish itself, just because the market is so, it's so crowded, like
Yeah.
regardless of what genre you're in. Like, how many how can you realistically launch a new battle royale when you already have these pillars in Fortnite, Apex, PUBG? Likewise, when you have something that tries to be a little different, like a Rumbleverse, and like that can't hold footing. Like, I don't know, Matt, like the free to play service space right now is kind of terrifying when you
Mm-hmm.
really think about it, just because it is a lot of games trying to establish themselves, and time and time again we're seeing them not. So yeah, to your point, I do feel like the multiverses thing does feel grimy. I'm hoping for everyone who has like invested in the game that it does come back
Mm-hmm.
in some form, that it feels like a lot tighter. Just because, again, we were so hyped about that quote unquote leaked list back when we talked about
Uh-huh.
multiverses, way back when. But again, Matt, not like this, Matt.
Uh-huh.
So we'll see, if, because part of me thinks, the cynical part of me is thinking, oh, they just want a second relaunch, and hopefully
Yeah.
they do it. But I don't know, Matt. Or let's just say that hopefully, LeBron James' kid, after he completes E3's coding camp, is able to get on, because his dad is in multiverses, of course.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Hopefully, he's able to take his learnings from that E3 coding camp and fix multiverses,
Mm-hmm.
and we get a good Smash like.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Maybe we'll save this for another episode, Matt. But Matt, why is it so hard to make a Smash clone? Like, come on,
Mm-hmm.
guys. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
speaking about E3 and, publishers not necessarily needing to be there anymore. You said that one of the best examples of that was Nintendo and their tried and true directs.
Hmm.
And earlier this week, we saw pretty much a mini direct of sorts where 10 minutes of the new Legend of Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom, we were able to see 10 minutes of footage. And I feel like this answered a lot of questions we had from initially viewing that initial trailer a few months back, but also for me personally, like a lot more questions arose in me. But before we get into that, Matt,
Hmm.
what did you think about the 10 minutes of Tears of the Kingdom that you saw from that Nintendo Direct?
Jaren, after I finished watching that 10 minutes of the Tears of the Kingdom gameplay, I immediately thought this is going to be the dumbest game ever and it's going to be so fun, I think. And so I feel like, I don't know if exploitable is the right word, but I feel like, I don't know, Jaren, I'm really interested in seeing how this game is going to go once it reaches the hands of millions of people.
So, Matt,
Hmm.
let's get this out of the way.
Hmm.
I can admit when I'm wrong most of the time, most of the time, but I feel like when we first watched that initial trailer of Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild 2, to some people,
Uh-huh.
that there was a bit of, let's say, cautious optimism to
Hmm.
us, or a bit of skepticism as well, in that it seemed that this game would have a lot more user generated content in the form of Banjo Kazooie nuts and bolts
Yes.
vehicles. And we had our hesitations, but again, Matt, you saw 10 minutes where we got to see a lot of the that UGC in practice, where we can combine weapons, where we can make these gimmicky vehicles and
Hmm.
contraptions.
Hmm.
And now that you saw the 10 minutes, Matt, where do your fears or expectations kind of lie when it does come to that janky UGC ness that this game seems to be bringing?
Jaren, I after seeing this gameplay, I am far more into this
Hmm.
super janky looking UGC. Just cause Jaren, my big fear when the initial trailer came out was that the vehicle creation was kind of just gonna lead you to a Jared, I'm blanking on the name of this game right now. It's the DS game where you kind of just put in a word and it generates it in the game for
Oh,
you.
Scribble Knots, Scribble
Yes,
Knots.
yes, yes, yes. I was really worried that it would lead to a kind of scribble knot situation where you kind of just put in a very strong item and
Right.
you kind of just like, roll through the content. And seeing that this game instead is going to be using kind of like what's around in the world instead of, hey, here's an inventory you have of all the items that you've collected, so now make a vehicle, is a lot more appealing to me because I am far more looking forward to, I don't know, creating a janky kind of flying hoverboard because with only one tree log and like, I don't know, a stick because that's all I could
Hmm.
find or bother to farm in this area. Or I don't know, attaching Jaren in this in this gameplay footage, they combined a stick and a pitchfork to just make a really long pitchfork. And I don't know, I when I saw that, I lost my shit. I thought that was for some reason the funniest thing I've ever seen inside a Zelda game, just because
Yeah.
of how ridiculous that weapon looked. And I'm really looking forward to just combining sticks with every single weapon that I can find, just to have, I don't know, long master sword or something like that.
Matt,
Uh-huh.
as someone who likes to eat mushrooms, but seeing wild mushrooms, like, wild mushrooms grow in the wild, and that freaked me the fuck out.
Uh-huh.
Matt,
Uh-huh.
combining a mushroom on a shield and just essentially seeing a mushroom growing on a shield made me want to cry.
That thing looks so
And
stupid. Oh man, that's so good.
so after watching, the gameplay footage, it made me really excited just to see essentially Nintendo leaning on kind of the more absurd nature of Breath of the Wild because
Hmm.
what Breath of the Wild ultimately became after everyone had their grand adventure. It was, hey, how can we use Link's abilities to manipulate this world and create stupid scenarios of,
Uh huh.
oh, I'm gonna launch this rock and then it's gonna propel me across the map and then I'm gonna kill like what was it like the Lionel lion guy things
Yeah.
or land on like a giant guardian and to see them lean into that absurd nature of what essentially gave Breath of the Wild another pair of legs
Uh huh.
kind of is refreshing in a way of me, Matt. Sometimes if I get frustrated with a game, it's okay, what guide can I look up? What's the meta build that I can do just
Hmm.
to kind of either get over this hump or, get myself to the finish line. But if this fuse mechanic or, just to be able to combine weapons, if it is really fully kind of explored and realized, I feel like that can even create a lot more unique and heart pounding combat situations or puzzle situations where even if you don't want to lean into this creative absurdity, you might be able to tell compelling player stories of your own personal adventures of, oh, I was fighting this wild enemy, my sword broke, and then I scrambled to find or to make use of what I was able to find around me.
Uh huh.
And I think it, one thing that I would really hope for is a lot of randomized, objects within the world where, okay, in this biome or if this area, you're more likely to find, this item or that item.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I would hope that, oh, when I went to this encampment, it had X, Y, and Z. But say when you went to this encampment or this area, it had A, B, C. So hopefully that level of randomness is there just so everyone's able to fully recognize these systems and be able to combine their own zany or even practical things to kind of propel themselves forward
Hmm.
without just saying, oh, come to this area, you'll find this stick always here, you'll find this rock, combine it. And, like, hopefully this will allow for a lot more creativity. But I think one of the big, not necessarily criticisms, but worries that I did see in through some of the reception to this trailer was the notion that, oh, they're leaning in towards, the open world jank,
Uh huh.
aspect of the Zelda games. Does this mean we're going like even Breath of the Wild had, fewer dungeons compared to a
Yeah.
traditional
Yeah.
Zelda. Like, what does that mean to the more traditional aspects of, Zelda games for this? Will this further step away from that? Will we not
Hmm.
get traditional dungeons? Will the well, was it the Sheikah shrines or whatever?
Yeah.
Will those be more so tuned towards the fusing stuff or like all these different mechanics, or will we see something more traditional? But I guess where do your thoughts lie in that regard, Matt?
I think I can't really remember where I saw it, but I feel like they did talk
Mhm.
about how the dungeons are going to be a bit more expansive in this one compared
Right.
to Breath of the Wild. So I'm really hoping that was true. Like for
Hmm.
me, the amount of dungeon stuff that were in Breath of the Wild was fine for me. I do think that the biggest disappointment I had in Breath of the Wild was the ending fight because I thought it was like
Yeah.
way too simple and I don't know, there wasn't enough impact on you deciding to do the guardian beasts before it.
Hmm.
But other than that, I felt like it was okay. The stuff that they've shown so far for Tears of the Kingdom all are appealing to me. It does have a lot of quality of life stuff that I like to see. Like they are saying, hey, now we are still gonna have like, hey, we're still gonna have weapon breaking, but now the weapon doesn't like fully disappear. You can keep it and repair it if it's a weapon you like. Or that ascend ability they had, where you can basically just climb up a mountain without having to kind of deal with actually climbing the mountain.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a nice change. And I don't know, I trust that they're going to have a nice balance of dungeons and stuff within this series. But I do think about the thought that you brought up before a long time ago. I don't even remember if it was in New Mistake Zone or if it was way back in Saturday Morning Arcade, where you talked about them having two branches of Zelda games, where Breath of the Wild is one branch, and then they have the more traditional dungeon kind of Ocarina of Time-esque gameplay loop in the other branch of Zelda games, which I think after seeing this, I feel like that has to be where this series goes.
So you're thinking that for the next mainline Zelda on, let's say, the Switch 2, you can see them kind of go back to a more traditional Zelda and then maybe alternate to a Breath of the Wild, afterwards. I feel like it's going to be, especially when you introduce so much customization and so much, opportunity for players to dick around like an open world, that if you want to deliver a more tightly designed experience, I feel like you need to go, that has to be a separate game at this point, because the customization opens up so much, I guess, design like opportunities that might not really lend itself to that traditional Zelda layout. So I can see where the frustrations from that fan base are coming from, certainly, but at the same time, as someone who does like to dick around these open worlds and see where they can break, and if you're gonna make it even more of a sandbox featuring Link, then like I'm all for it as well, just to see what kind of stories we can tell from that. But Matt, I don't know about you, but there was one thing that kind of made me roll my eyes during that 10-minute gameplay showcase, which was the rewind ability or whatever mechanic. And maybe it's just because, we don't have our hands on the game yet and we don't see what it can really do. But the fact that they're choosing to showcase this ability in this 10-minute showcase, and all they really do with the rewind is, hey, a big rock fell from the Sky Island to the ground. We're going to rewind it so we can go onto that Sky Island. And it's like, oh, this ability is essentially an elevator of sorts.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that to me was the weakest part of the showcase, just because maybe it's not apparent to me and my small brain, where I literally don't know what else this rewind mechanic is for other than a elevator to all the different Sky Islands, or a bridge, or some sort of repeated attack against a boss. But I hope I'm proven wrong in that regard. But
I mean, to be honest, Jaren, when I saw the recall feature or rewind feature, I immediately became worried about that, because in my head it immediately became, oh no, there's gonna be rewind time puzzles in this game, and I feel like those are going to become a real annoyance to deal with.
Yeah, Matt, I'm really curious to see, because I'm assuming those Guardian Shrine things will return as well, and a lot of those really depend on how you master the kind of mechanics, especially. And yeah, I don't know, for some reason seeing the rewind feature or whatever that mechanic was probably the most uninspired portion that I saw. Like everything else, well, I guess the fusing part was like the main course of that showcase, but even like that emerging one where you kind of traverse rocks or like go up, I thought, oh, here we go, another elevator scene, where I think, it was the nuts and bolts aspect that really appealed to me and made me really excited to learn more about this game. But I feel like some of the other mechanics they showed weren't necessarily that appealing to me. But Matt, this game's coming out real soon.
Yeah, like a month.
Any closing thoughts on the 10 minutes that you saw, and what's something you're really looking forward to doing in the game once you get your hands on it?
I'm really looking forward to this fuse system. Like, I really want to see what stuff fuses with what and like how much the properties kind of stick. Like in particular, I'm really interested in the eyeball. I want to see if it is specifically, hey, when you attach eyeball to something, it becomes homing. Because one of the things they showed is like the shield and the mushroom, which explodes, right, when something hits your shield. So I'm interested in seeing what something like shield and eyeball will make.
Yeah.
In terms of like what they've shown so far.
I know the possibilities seem like they're endless, but I really hope that when you have a system, I know it's going to be a design nightmare and a development nightmare, but Matt, you need to have at least a lot of different things you can use. I think the most disappointing part to me would be finally getting, my hands on this game and realizing, oh, there's only like 10, like only a dozen or so things you can really fuse. But I hope this is definitely one of those games where you're literally scrambling, and in that scramble of not having like your weapon breaking and scrambling to make something happen, but that's when you discover, oh, I didn't know this combination existed, or I didn't even know you could fuse this item. Like I hope there's an expansive roster or arsenal of things that you can fuse, and just because I feel like that would be pretty disappointing to me. Again, I can acknowledge that it would be a technical nightmare to deal with, but again, if it's a small selection of things, I feel like that would really take away from the excitement that I built in my head. But yeah, man, it comes out in May. Matt, real stacked when I come back from vacation. We have new anime. Redfall, something that I'll probably try to play the week it comes out and then instantly retire that when Zelda comes out. Fast movie coming out. Matt, stacked summer ahead. But as we kind of approach the end of this beefy episode, my apologies again, Matt. Any closing thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom?
I'm really excited. I need to go buy that Nintendo coupon so I can spend one of those 2 Nintendo tickets on Tears of the Kingdom and then figure out what I'm going to spend the other one on.
Well, man, I'm looking forward to our beefy episode this May when we talk about Tears of the Kingdom. And
Jaren, I think I'm gonna take that Friday that it releases off because I'm pretty sure I'm not really gonna work, and I might as well get as much Tears of the Kingdom in as I can before our episode.
I feel that, Matt. I feel that, and with that, another beefy episode from us. So, Matt. As always, I want to thank you for accompanying me in the mistake zone this week. I want to thank the big homie, the god, Amano Pikamee, for all the memories and wishing her the best in her graduation and whatever she does. I want to thank Matt. I honestly forget what else we talked about this episode.
Talked about
Matt, who else should we thank?
Yeah.
Okay.
We gotta thank we gotta thank all these new anime coming out. Gotta thank 12-year-old boys and learning how to live their life. Gotta thank Insomnia and its link to astronomy.
I want to thank YouTube's search bar, and I want to thank the words Mistake Zone, Must See Animes Spring Season 2023. I want to thank the Enter key. Yeah, Matt. I want to thank LeBron James's kid for saving Multiversus.
I don't want to thank LeBron James for killing E3.
Oh, man, Matt. Beefy episode, but with that, Matt, please take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of Pikamee 3.
Oh, man.